good to go. Thank you, Ms. Oratala.
All right, thank you. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us. It is 5 o'clock. We're going to start on the dot. Some introductions. I am Nina Oratella. I'm the principal of Thomas Jefferson Middle School. Joining us tonight, we have Mr. Enoch Nyamiche, who is the assistant principal over grades 5 and 7, and Mr. Ramon Ortiz, the assistant principal over grades 6 and 8. And the man behind the scenes, Mr. Mohammed Saleh, the Director of Technology. Hopefully I won't need to rely on you too much, Mr. Saleh. I'd also like to take a moment to say thank you to all of our pandemic response team members who have been working with the administration to come up with a plan for the reopening of schools. The members and the team consisted of parents, and a few of our teachers, as well as our nurse, our counselor, and social worker. And I know some of them are in the audience with us tonight. Thank you all for taking the time to join us. Now, our reopening dates will occur in 2 phases. Phase 1, the opening date of schools will be January 11th for our self-contained students. And the second phase of reopening of schools will occur on January 25th for all in-person learners. Just to give you an idea of when the marking periods begin and end, we are currently in the second marking period, and the second marking period does end on January 28th. The third marking period begins January 29th and goes to March 31st. And then the fourth marking period begins April 1st and goes until the end of the year. Our return to schools, or the reopening date of schools, will occur towards the end of the second marking period, and hopefully the entire third marking period we will be in schools in person. We will be following the hybrid model. Now what that means is that students will be assigned to a cohort to report to the school and remain remote on certain days. There will be 2 cohorts. Cohort A will consist of the in-person students reporting to the building on Mondays and Tuesdays, and will remain as virtual learners at home remote on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Cohort B, those students will remain remote on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, and will report to the building for in-person learning on Thursdays and Fridays. As you notice, on Wednesdays, both cohorts will be remote, learning from home, and we will be following virtual Wednesdays. And the reason for that is all faculty, staff, and students will remain remote at home to ensure that the building is thoroughly cleaned between the 2 cohorts reporting to the building. Now, we are asking for our parents to complete the form if you choose to keep your child at home as a remote learner for the third marking period. The registration form for the virtual learner registration was emailed on Monday, December 14th by the Director of Guidance, Ms. Keisha Golding Cooper. If you did not receive that email, and I did hear last night at our PTA meeting that some of our parents did not receive that email, the form is also available on our school webpage. But we do ask that you complete that form as soon as possible, and that form must be completed by this Friday, December 18th. Now, the reason why we ask for this registration is so that we can better plan and work with that data and those numbers to plan our cohort assignments. Once students are placed into cohorts, you will be notified of your child's cohort grouping by January 13th. You will also be able to see in Skyward, there will be an indicator included in the Skyward system to let you know which cohort your child falls into. And we want to be mindful of our families with multiple children across the district. So siblings will definitely be assigned to the same cohort in any building that they attend.
Good evening again, parents and guardians. So as far as the classroom environment, students will remain in the same classroom for most, if not all, their classes. Desks will be assigned per student, and we will limit, or there will be no sharing of materials among students. Most of the work will be completed through the Google products and the Google Chromebook. Shields have been installed onto each desk. Social distancing will be enforced not only in the classroom, but throughout the building. And unit ventilators will provide fresh air into each classroom. Next slide. I think the presentation went down, right?
Yes, it did.
Mr. Ortiz, it looks like maybe Nita may have disconnected. Do you have a copy of the presentation and I can post it for you, or if you want to share as well?
Yes, let me open it and share my screen.
Vice Assistant Principal Ortiz, you're muted, sir.
There we go. We can hear me now? We're good? Thank you.
Yes.
Okay. So once again, for the school environment, students will enter and exit buildings through assigned doors by grade. Students will be required to wear a mask at all times while in our building. Hand washing posters will be in every bathroom, and hand sanitizers will be in each hallway. And the hand sanitizers have a foot pedal, so students will not be touching the same surface while using it. Health screening is extremely important, parents and guardians, that every single day that you complete the days that your students are coming into the building, that you complete the Qualtrics screening. You will receive an email. We'll ask you various questions in regards to your child's health. Once you do that, if all those questions are answered positively, you'll get a green, you're good to go sign. And our staff members at the doors will have a list of students who have completed the Qualtrics and are allowed in the building. But if your student is dropped off without that clearance, the student will not be allowed to report to class until that form is completed. And we will put that student in a waiting room until that occurs. If a student does show up to our building and has some symptoms, we will place that student in our care room and will be monitored by the nurse until a parent picks up the child. Bathrooms, the restrooms will be monitored to make sure that there's only one student in the bathroom at a time. They will be cleaned regularly and checked to ensure soap and paper towels are always stocked. And there are posters displayed to remind the students to continue to wash their hands and how to wash their hands correctly. Extremely important, back to what Ms. Odotala discussed, our students will be placed, the students that are attending school will be placed into specific cohorts. And it's important that they do attend school on the days they're assigned to attend school. If they're not there, they will be marked absent in our system.
When it comes to the instructional schedule, I'm sorry, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. When it comes to the instructional schedule, the morning schedule will remain as is. Lunch will be distributed to in-person students upon dismissal. And so when the students get home within that hour break, one time will take over, which is what I need time. And after school tutoring will proceed afterwards. And so the next slide is going to break down the current schedule we follow. And this schedule can also be found on our school website. Again, for our 5th and 6th graders at 12:30, that's when the day ends for them to be dismissed from the school building. And this is for our hybrid students to go home and participate in our WIN sessions. And for our 7th and 8th graders, their day in the building ends at 12:48, which again gives them the time to resume with the WIN sessions at 1:48. And in regards to our hybrid learning model, high quality educational experience for both in-person and remote learners will take place. And so what that means is that the synchronous instruction will, live instruction will take place where students will get a chance to interact with teachers, even if they're remote. And through the course of the year, teachers will be instituting project-based learning, giving students the opportunities to collaborate and also cohesively discover whatever it is that the teacher is posing as a question to uncover. As far as feedback is concerned, for both in-person and remote learners, students will receive real-time feedback in multiple ways, which may include having Google breakout rooms for said students, and also teachers giving students feedback via Google Docs or slides or forms, any form of feedback that the teacher currently uses online remotely will also be instituted even when students are in the school building. And I just want to reiterate that even though students are in the building, there's still live instruction that's going to take place, but we should be cognizant of the social distancing rules, meaning the teacher is not necessarily going to be walking over to a student, maybe standing over his or her shoulder to assist. That assistance can still take place using social distancing protocols. As far as what learners need to bring to school, their Chromebook devices with chargers, or the Chromebooks being charged at night is highly encouraged and necessary for students to be able to keep it powered through the course of the day. Textbooks and learning resources and notebooks are also needed for students who are coming in the building. As Mr. Ortiz and Ms. Ordetella shared, face masks, face coverings are required at all times. And no locker usage will be implemented during the school year. The students will be able to bring in backpacks, including rolling backpacks to store any additional resources they may bring to the building.
Thank you, Mr. Ortiz, Mr. Niamiche. I apologize. I got kicked off the area I live in. If it rains outside, I lose Wi-Fi and power. So I'm lucky that I didn't lose power today. At this time, we would like to open it up for any questions. Please feel free to add your questions into the Q&A box, and we will be taking those questions as they come in. First question is, how will students travel home and eat lunch in that time? It doesn't seem like enough time. The students are dismissed at 12:30 for 5th and 6th graders and 12:48 for 7th and 8th grade. And they have an hour between when they are dismissed from school until they are home. Within that 1 hour block of time, we are expecting that they will be home and will enjoy their lunch before they join their WIN sessions at 1:30 or 1:48. And then the next question is, where should students put their cell phones while they're in class? The cell phone rule will remain the same. Our expectations whenever students are in the building is that the cell phones are silenced or off. Our rule pre-pandemic was always have them off and in their locker. However, now that we no longer are using lockers, students will have their book bags or their jackets with them in the classroom, and so they can keep their cell phones in their book bags in their class. If they are traveling to another class, now as Mr. Ortiz mentioned, traveling from classroom to classroom will be limited. For our 5th and 6th grade students, they will remain in the same classroom for the entirety of the day. Our 7th and 8th grade students will be transitioning to their elective courses or their encores, and so they can take their cell phones with them as long as they are in their pockets and silent so that they're not disrupting the instruction. There's the next question. Do I need to submit separate forms if I have children in TJ and THS, or will one form suffice? It's one form, unless there is an exception to your children. If you choose to have one remote and one in person, then you would just have to notify the administration of that building. Mr. Ortiz, Mr. Niumiche, would you like to take the next question?
The cafeteria will be outfitted with sinks for students to wash hands between meals. Students will be given their meals at the end of the day when they're dismissed. So there won't be any students eating in the cafeteria. The lunches will be eaten at home.
I see a comment here which states if we pick up our children and we have a 5th grader and an 8th grader and then have to travel home, that only gives about 30 minutes for the 5th grader to finish lunch. And generally speaking, during the regular school year, students have about 20 minutes, give or take, to eat lunch. And so this fits into what they will be experiencing if they were in the school building anyway on a regular school year.
Are there any other questions? How will PE be conducted? Physical education will be conducted in the gymnasium. Students will be required to keep their face masks on, but they will not be changing for physical education. In the past, our 5th and 6th grade students never changed for physical education. Our 7th and 8th graders only had access to the locker room to change for phys ed. However, that will not be the case. Post-pandemic, we will not require students to change. If they do have physical education on a day, our schedule is ACE or BDS day, so students only have physical education every other day. On the day that they do have physical education, if the student prefers, or as parents or guardians prefer, on those days they can come into school with their athletic wear on, but they will not be changing for physical education. And students, for the most part, our physical education teachers will, weather permitting, will hold their classes outdoors. But if the weather does not permit, then while they are in the gymnasium, classes will be socially distanced. Students will be socially distanced from one another. And then equipment that is being used in the physical education class will be limited, if used at all.
There's a question here about are Chromebooks required? As my kids currently use personal laptops, definitely the Chromebooks are required. And Mr. Salat, you're on the call. I'm pretty sure if they brought their personal laptops, they wouldn't be able to get into our district internet, right?
That is correct, Mr. Ortiz.
Okay, so definitely our Chromebooks, our district Chromebooks are required when you come to school.
Now, for some of our 5th grade parents, it was brought to our attention that last year as 4th graders, you may not have picked up the Chromebook from your child's school, or for whatever reason, some of our 5th graders never received a school device. The Chrome Depot is open during certain hours, and at any point in time, you or your child can go to the Chrome Depot and just let them know that you never received a device, and they will provide you with one. The next question is, will windows be open in classrooms to aid circulation, also to help moderate the room temperatures, as masks are hot to wear all the time? As
I think Minnesota Telefro. So each room is outfitted with a unit ventilation system, and that unit system takes fresh air, of course, from outside and pushes it into the classroom. So that system is in place. So opening the windows does not have to occur in the classrooms.
And I see another question here. How will band class work with children using instruments like horns, flutes, etc.? And so at this juncture, we're considering using the auditorium to facilitate music class where students do use instruments. And or it simply may have to, and just so you know, the auditorium will be socially distant. So we do definitely have enough space to spread out students. And as far as certain lessons are concerned, that is up to Ms. Neff and the rest of the music teachers to determine the best course of action to still promote social distancing. I don't see any other questions. Ms. Ortiz, do you see any other questions?
No, not so far. I haven't seen any.
Okay, I believe we've answered most of the questions here, or all of the questions that I see at least. If there aren't any questions, Ms. Auditella is here to give us any other pointers she may have at this time. And by the way, Ms. Auditella, all the questions that we see in front of us have been answered.
Been answered.
Great. Hopefully I won't get kicked out again. If all of the questions have been answered, and if you parents or attendees, community members, guardians, I would like to say thank you so much for taking the time out on this Wednesday evening to join us. And if you do think of any questions that were not answered tonight, please refer to the frequently asked questions that were emailed last night. They're also posted on our school website. Many of the questions that you might have are also available in there. However, if they aren't, and if you don't feel that they were answered tonight, please send an email to either myself, Mr. Niemiche, and Mr. Ortiz, and we will get back to you with a response as soon as possible.
I actually see a question here, Ms. Auditella. I see one question here. It says, will the schedule change for the fourth marking period? And at this time, that is not a point of discussion, and it is up to not only our district administration, but also with the current state of events, we play it by ear. But as of now, the current schedule students are following remotely will be the same schedule they'll be following in the hybrid instruction.
One parent did ask about the room temperature. The temperature in the rooms are regulated within the classrooms. On average, our classrooms do remain between 65 and 70 degrees. However, if the teacher feels that it is not cool enough or too warm, the temperature is regulated within the classroom.
See another question here. Are the children in school going to be on their Chromebooks the whole time like at home? That depends on the instruction that's being given, but for the most part, yes, essentially, because we do have remote students who are going to be interacting with those very students in the classroom. And so the Chromebooks are needed. And also when it comes to the instruction, a lot of the work, or practically most of the work that's going to be done in the classroom is going to be via Google Classroom, which demands our students to be in front of the computer. Also, when it comes to feedback, teachers are going to be giving feedback to students via the Google platform or suite that we currently utilize. So to answer the question, yes, most of the instruction will be delivered through the Chromebook.
And just to add to that also, it allows our students that are in school to communicate with the students that are virtual. So it's going to allow, to get more of a class feeling, have them all collaborate.
The next question is regarding if you choose to keep your child virtual for the third marking, can you change your mind for the fourth marking period? The answer, absolutely. If you do decide that you're not comfortable sending your child in for the third marking period, and by the fourth marking period you feel that you are ready to send your child in, the registration form that we used that was sent out this week will also be sent out again towards the end of the third marking period. And so you can change your decision to either opt for in-person learning or remain remote.
I see a question here about how will dismissal work. Dismissal will work in relation to what they will do when they enter the building. So we're going to be dismissing in cohorts. And so when it comes to the dismissal time, we may let a class out maybe a minute or two early and engage it like that, but not all students, for example, fifth and sixth graders, even though they're dismissed at 12:30, not all students will be dismissed from the building at the exact time.
And they will have separate exit doors, so completely separate exit doors to go through.
Now there's a question here about the quarantine policy. Mr. Cox, our district public safety coordinator, I'm not sure if you were introduced while I was kicked out, but welcome and thank you for joining us. Perhaps you can answer that question.
Definitely, Principal Otatala. Thank you for having me. For parents that haven't had the chance to meet me, my name is Cameron Cox. I'm the District Public Safety Coordinator. In the wake of the Department of Education dictating that every district needed to have a COVID-19 response coordinator in their road back plan, at that time I was also named the district's COVID-19 response coordinator. In reference to the quarantine policy for cohort, I know sometimes we use words interchangeably, so I want to make sure I'm very prudent and clear with this. Quarantine policy will be based on direct impacts. And so, pardon me. If in your child's class, I heard Mr. Michi say fifth grade. So let's say a fifth grade class has a positive case in that class where they haven't left that classroom. We would start the quarantine policies based upon every other child in that immediate class being a direct contact of a positive case. When we talk about cohort, then we're talking about multiple classrooms that may have had what's called a community event. A community event could be something like there may be a need to have this fifth grade class have gym with this sixth grade class for purposes of scheduling. When that happens, we would treat those two classes, because they had a common community event, as direct contacts of the individual that may have tested positive within either one of those classes. And so I hope that answers the question. If it doesn't answer your question, and you'd like to have a follow-up, please just type it in the box and I can re-reference if that wasn't clear enough for you.
Thank you, Mr. Cox. There's a question about opting for remote learning for the fourth marking period. And if you do opt for remote learning, then will you be required to remain remote for the entire marking period? The answer is yes. We do need to plan accordingly and make sure that we have the most accurate numbers as far as our students that are reporting to school. So if you do opt for a remote option, that will be for the entire marking period. There's a question about how and when will parents be notified about class closures as a result of COVID infection? I believe Mr. Cox already touched upon that, but go ahead, Mr. Cox.
Yes, and so during expediency, quick response is paramount in this process. Weekends and holidays will always be more difficult, But the second you know if it is your child, forbid that it is, but if it is your child who tests positive, you need to inform Principal Otatala immediately so that she can initiate the notification protocols, so that we can do our contact tracing in conjunction with the Teaneck Township Department of Health, and first immediately notify the parents and families of those immediate and direct contacts. And then for a school-wide population, we have to make sure we ensure we maintain everyone's privacy. And so there will be a school notification sent out to all parents, not notifying the grade, not stipulating the grade, not stipulating the class or the child, but just to inform you that there was, in fact, a confirmed case. All direct and secondary contacts have such been notified, and them themselves have been informed of their direct or immediate needs for quarantine protocols. This is just as a notification that this case did occur within your child's school. So it will be more for information purposes, unless your child is one of the direct or secondary contacts, at which time you will be contacted from one of the administrative staff members to let you know that.
Thank you. Question about the dismissal process. Will kids be dismissed with the teacher or left to leave the building together? Our 5th and 6th grade students have always been pre-pandemic escorted out of the building by their teachers. However, our 7th and 8th graders have always enjoyed a little more independence when exiting the building. I know they're not going to love this, but yes, they will have to be escorted by their teachers outdoors. Now that there is no need for them to report to their lockers, they would just gather their belongings from the classroom and they would be escorted out of the building.
There's a question in regards to, will the classroom doors be allowed to be open to help with ventilation? The classroom doors will remain closed. We ensure that our classrooms are always in lockdown mode. The safety of our children are extremely important. So, and once again, the ventilation system that's in place does not require or need that door to be open. It will continue to bring fresh air from the outside in.
Next question is, if a teacher is exposed on A day, will the B day cohort be remote on their days? And if I understand that question correctly, if the teacher must quarantine on the following day with the next cohort, then those students will still report to the school building, and they will still participate in live instruction with 6 of their other teachers or 5 of their other teachers, but they will remain in the classroom learning virtually from that teacher who is quarantining at home. We will have someone who will be with the students physically in the classroom. However, the teacher who is providing the instruction will be remote. The next question is, if we are yellow, orange, red zone, how will the district handle the 20% increase testing guidelines from the state for the school to open?
Can you repeat the last part? I realized that was a me question. I didn't get
That's okay. If we are yellow, orange, or red, how will the district handle the 20% plus increased testing guidelines from the state for the school to open?
Oh, okay. Currently, the whole state as a whole is in orange. There are portions of the state that are trending towards red. To handle the 20% testing guidelines, we've already taken initial steps to ensure that we offer the testing for not only all of our staff members, but for the parents and families of our district. Currently, we are even next Wednesday and the following Wednesday providing testing available that will take place in a drive-through open air method outside in the rear parking lot of Benjamin Franklin Middle School. As we transition to reopening in January, as of right now, the administration has committed to twice monthly. More than likely, it will be on Wednesdays during those virtual cleaning days to make it easier on faculty, staff, students, and parents. However, in the event that the uptick occurs and we need to increase that, we've already talked to the vendor who is providing the services, and they are committed to transitioning to once a week if the need arises for available testing. And again, that I want to make it clear, if you have your health insurance, they will utilize your health insurance. If you do not have health insurance, with an additional filling out of a form, they will still allow you to receive testing, and it will go through the CARES Act that still covers testing for communities that have high transition rates. I hope I answered that question. Is everybody frozen? Nobody saying anything? Okay, Mr. Ortiz smiled, so okay. I think that's what it was. Principal Odatala, she hit another bad patch.
Mr. Cox, can you speak to if the district is requiring a specific type of mask for students to wear to school?
So currently the CDC, as everyone knows, it trickles down from the CDC guidelines for best practices. Currently, the CDC guidelines trickles down to the New Jersey Department of Health, which trickles down to the county, to the city. And so the guidance as it stands now is, I know in the beginning of the pandemic outbreak, it was heavily pressed upon people to have the N95s or the KN95s. At this time, that style mask is not required. A simple mask or face covering is sufficient. However, we do caution, any mask is better than no mask, but we do caution against the gator style mask that you often see in hunting or fishing that are easily slip on, slip off, because what that has proven is that the material that it's made out of, when your respiration occurs through that material, it actually helps break up the particles and disperse it further than if you would just wear a normal mask covering with a loop. So at this time, the N95 or the KN95s are not required, but there is no specific mask that we are mandating. But we do caution parents. Again, some face covering or mask is better than none. You have to have some to come into the building. So unfortunately, if you show up and you only have a gator, we would have to, make sure we let some accommodation. But each school will have some additional masks on hand for students that this may occur to. But we are highly encouraging parents not to buy the gator style mask because of the way it breaks up and actually helps the respiration particles go further and disperse in multiple directions.
There's a question about clarification regarding the remote learning. If you opt for in-person learning but decide to change your mind to a remote learning setting, then we just ask that you give us 3 days notice to be able to plan and prepare for that. We would have to go into Skyward and change the settings for the cohort assignments, and of course the teachers would need to be notified about that. So we just ask that you give us those 3 days in advance notice if you do decide to change your mind between going from in-person to virtual. There is a question regarding the unit ventilations, about the types of filters. Mr. Cox, I'm not sure if you're able to answer this, but there's a question specifically about the types of filters in those unit ventilators, if they're HEPA filters.
Okay, so HEPA is actually a name brand and a patent device mechanism on how certain air filtration systems utilize their filter. The Uniflow vents devices that we have in our classrooms that, again, directly vent in and out from fresh air directly outside for that specific classroom. We utilize the MERV filtration rating system. And based on the age of the machine in each room, and there are some, I don't want to make it seem like every machine is the same age in every classroom, but based on the MERV rating recommendation for that unit, we have the applicable filtration filter that will filter out the proper particles for the way that machine works. And like, again, you'll hear very high MERV rating systems, 30, MERV 30. If the system wasn't designed to handle a MERV 30, you'd actually do disharm by locking or seizing and preventing the filtration and the airflow from working appropriately. So we have the proper MERV rated filters that are inserted into our Univent flow devices for each individual classroom, and that will ensure that particles are taken out of the air as the unit itself is shooting the air it pulls in from the classroom outside and bringing clean, fresh air from the outside into the classroom.
Thank you. We only have time for a few more questions. We do have a hard stop at 5:45. So if your question was not answered, please send us an email and we will be sure to give you a response. However, one of the questions that I see we still haven't answered is if the number of students in one cohort is small, can it be grouped with another cohort? And can the students attend school 4 days a week? At this point in time, that is something that we can consider in the future, but for now, the first phase of reopening, that will not be an option. The only students that will be in school 4 days a week will be our self-contained in-person students. Another question regarding fire drills and lockdowns and how those will be handled. Mr. Cox?
Yeah, so since the return to school in multiple, it looks different in every district, but since the return of school since September, school safety and security drills are heavily regulated by state statute. That has not, by gubernatorial executive order or change in law, been altered. What the New Jersey Department, OSPEP, the Office of School Preparedness and Emergency Planning, what they've done is worked very closely with the governor's office. Obviously, they work under the auspices of the New Jersey Department of Education to ensure that schools can conduct socially distance-friendly drills as it relates to ensuring compliance with the drill regulations, laws, and statutes, while still keeping kids socially distanced and safe. Some drills do not avail themselves to be socially distance friendly. And so there has been some notification drills. There has been some other drills that schools can implement based upon in-person learning. So once we do come back, because it's all based upon having students in the building learning. Once that does happen, we have a list of drills that we'll ensure to be in compliance with the drill laws. As of now, fire drills, as funny as it may sound, is actually one of the easiest to conduct in a socially distanced manner because we get people out to an exit and we get them outside. And so we'll continue to do that. Lockdown drills, we want to practice like we would need to perform in the event that it actually happens. And so no, they are not as friendly when it comes to abiding by social distancing. But we will ensure that in the event that we need to conduct a lockdown in the school, that your children's safety will be paramount for all of us, and that we will have some reminders that we conduct in a socially distanced fashion to ensure that they know how to respond if that moment arises in the school day.
Thank you, Mr. Cox. And one last question. I believe we answered most of the questions. There's one question that I missed regarding the band. The question is, how will band class work with children using instruments like horns or flutes? If a child is enrolled in orchestra or band, then they will be expected to practice with their instrument. However, the teacher in the classroom will ensure that students are socially distanced. And with the size of the classroom where band and orchestra are held, it is quite spacious. And so the teacher will be able to have the students spaced out well enough to ensure safety. At this time, it is 5:45. Again, we do have a hard stop time of 5:45. I appreciate everyone joining us tonight. Thank you so much. If you have any questions that were not answered, please send an email to one of the administrators and we'll be sure to respond accordingly and in a timely manner. Just a reminder to please complete that registration form for the all remote option by this Friday. If you did not receive the form, it is located on our school website. And I wish you all well. Thank you again. Stay safe and have fun shoveling. Bye-bye.